Manipulation. Emotional manipulation techniques to influence people with mind control, persuasion, NLP. Introduction. Manipulative people are regarded as mean, malicious, psychotic, and evil, but maybe they're just misunderstood. No, listen to me for a second. Allow me to explain. While manipulation can certainly, and often, be used for evil purposes and to hurt people, it can also be extremely useful for you, while not doing anything to harm others. Didn't think that was possible? Well, this is exactly what this book is for. It will explain everything you wanted to know about how manipulation works, what it's good for, how to do it, as well as how to recognize and deal with people who want to use it against you with nefarious intentions. Manipulation is nothing more than taking advantage of your God-given persuasive skills or acquiring them with the purpose of using them not against others, but for yourself. This is one of the most important distinctions you need to learn and remember in order to be able to genuinely use manipulation in your favor convincingly and without hesitation. In fact, if you plan on using manipulation in order to harm others, I would advise closing the book now and reevaluating your life and your priorities. You're heading down a very dark path. The advice and tactics described and detailed in this book are not meant to hurt others, so they won't work if that is your goal. In fact, you will find a chapter dedicated to identifying manipulative behavior in others and how to deal with that or counteract it. In addition, you will learn what manipulation is, how to eliminate your prejudices against it, and what tactics to employ in order to successfully use manipulation to get what you want. As for what you can get through manipulation, we cover that too. Everything you need to know is neatly tucked away in this handy guide for you to use. It's thorough, easy to navigate, and created to help you. If you lack the natural flair you need for this kind of thing, don't worry. You don't have to be a born master manipulator in order to employ these techniques. You can learn all there is to know about persuasion, manipulation, influence, neurolinguistic programming, and even mind control. You don't have to feel inadequate because everything can and will be learned. That is exactly why I've decided to write this book, so it can act as a guide to manipulation for you. It will walk you through everything you need to know in order to start, step by step. Don't allow yourself to be manipulated or intimidated. You can learn how to identify and conquer manipulation in those who employ it. Better yet, you can become the manipulator in that relationship instead of being a victim. Don't wait any longer. Learn how to master manipulation and all its tactics today. Start right now with this book. Good luck. Chapter 1. What is manipulation? Manipulation is a bad word, or so we're taught. When you think about it, it's always used in a negative context, and it has an unfortunate connotation. But what is manipulation? Psychology today defines it as the exercise of undue influence through mental distortion and emotional exploitation, with the intention to seize power, control, benefits, and/or privileges at the victim's expense. Still pretty negative. Society doesn't look kindly upon people who try to trick others or coerce them to do things they wouldn't normally. That's because people tend to have foul intentions when engaging in manipulation. However, you may have manipulated people in your lifetime or have been manipulated yourself without even realizing it. To give a very simple example, the advertising industry is essentially based on manipulation. Its entire purpose and the point of its existence is to convince you, through any means possible, to purchase things you don't need and don't actually want. They lie, exaggerate, appeal to your emotions, and use every trick in the book to get you to buy. Is that evil? Maybe, but it's an evil we deem acceptable in our society. You see, it all depends on the way you look at things. If you want to see evil intent, then that is what you will believe. But intent is important, and as long as you don't want to do harm, exerting influence, or using your persuasive abilities, doesn't have to be manipulative, or the bad kind of manipulative. Because we can't guess intent, it's a matter of subjective perception. Are you manipulating someone, or just merely suggesting something very Enthusiastically? Is the sales assistant manipulating you? Or genuinely complimenting you on the fit of that jacket? You can never know. Or can you? Fortunately, detecting manipulation and manipulative people is one of the things we're going to discuss and learn in a later chapter. The point is that you can try to define manipulation, but it's difficult to determine what exactly and without a doubt is manipulation and what isn't. In fact, to illustrate that point, let's do a little exercise. I'll give you some scenarios, and you decide if that seems like manipulation. Ready? A girl with a little kid turn up at your doorstep. Oh, they're from an organization that helps children with heart disease. And did you know, little Timmy over here has a hole in his heart and had to have 34 surgeries since he was born? Isn't that just terrible? And by the way, if you want to help the poor children who are suffering with heart diseases, we're currently taking donations. Little Timmy is looking at you all expectantly. What are you going to do? You meet up with a friend for coffee. You chat for a bit and he manages to mention money, how expensive something is, or the fact that he's broke about 15 times in 10 minutes. He orders the cheapest drink, tries to stiff the waitress, and tells you how badly he needs some cash and how much it would help him. He never outright asks you, though. Manipulation, or just a friend venting and telling you about their life? Lately, your significant other keeps telling you how much they like a certain style of hair. First, they say it's cute. Then, they start showing you other people wearing that hairstyle or pointing out how good it looks on someone else. They might mention how much they loved it when you used to have your hair like that years ago. They keep complimenting you on how good you looked, that it makes you look younger. It sets off your eyes. It makes you look so hot, etc. After a while, you start considering it. Maybe you should cut your hair like that. You liked it too, remember? And who doesn't need to shave a few years off? Do you actually like it, or were you manipulated into thinking you do through some intelligent, positive reinforcement? I know that now you're probably expecting me to tell you whether or not these examples were instances of manipulation, but I'm afraid I can't. I don't know myself. See what I was saying about intent? It could go either way, which is why manipulation can be so subtle and insidious. You could be manipulated your entire life and you'd never know. Unless, of course, you learn how to identify this kind of behavior in other people. With time and practice, you get to understand the basics of manipulation better, what is and what isn't manipulation, who is likely to be a manipulative person, and who has nefarious purposes. It's also important to distinguish between manipulation and social influence. A superficial look, they might seem to be the same, or at least similar, but the truth is they couldn't be more different. Why, you ask? Well, intent plays a role. Here, once again, you see, social influence is absolutely normal and, most importantly, mutual. As I said earlier, you might have been influenced, or even manipulated, without even realizing. No man is an island, and when you associate with other people, you're going to pick up some opinions, habits, preferences, etc. that you didn't have before. Who is to tell if you picked them up voluntarily, if you did it absently and organically, or if someone was making a concentrated effort to make you change? Let me give you some examples of social influence. You start hanging out with a new friend who has different political views than you do. Over time, you discuss some things, you realize they have some good points, and you start to shift positions a bit. Some point, you are at least partly converted to the other side. You've always hated avocado, but lately, it's become a trendy meal option. You've been seeing it everywhere, so you decide to give it another try. What do you know? You love it. You were influenced by your environment to try it, but you made up your mind about it on your own. You never really dreamed about a wedding and always thought you'd be single or just partnered. But your current partner really wants a wedding, and you want them to be happy. You realize you still don't necessarily want it, but you wouldn't mind it. So you agree to get married. You were influenced, but you made a choice. This phenomenon isn't exclusive just to politics or religion, things like that, but we can start imitating or sharing values with friends and literally any other. Respect. It can be that you admire their fashion sense and unknowingly start to recreate it. It can be that they've introduced you to horror movies and now you love them. It can be anything at all. You changing your mind about things or agreeing with someone else does not have to be manipulation, and it does not need to be done with intent. It's impossible to not allow yourself to be influenced by external factors, whether it's media, society in general, or specific people. While it can be argued that we, as a mass, are being manipulated on a large scale by media and politicians, that's a completely different ballgame. The apparatus is entirely too complex to fight against it, and you can never know what is real and what isn't. Second-guessing and being suspicious of everything can turn you into a conspiracy theorist concerned that everyone is out to get them and that everyone is lying to them. And an existence fueled by paranoia is not a good one. Oftentimes, people feel like fools when they realize they've been manipulated, but you don't have to feel bad. You couldn't have known someone was playing with your mind because you're earnest and you believe other people are as well. But you're about to have your eyes open to the many facets of manipulation, how it can be used against you, and how you can use it as well. Chapter 2. When you're the manipulator. It's easy to demonize manipulation when we're talking about someone else, like a cartoon villain, communist dictator, or the mean secretary from work. And the truth is, yes, manipulation can absolutely be used for evil, and it can do real damage. It's not something to take lightly or play with if you don't know what you're doing. You wouldn't want to inflict damage. However, manipulation can be employed without destroying lives. Think of it like this: bad manipulation has the purpose to hurt other people, while good manipulation brings you advantages. We're not here to debate the morality of manipulation, and I would even venture to say that if you're uncertain about whether you can, in good faith, engage in manipulation, then don't do it. At least, not until it's become clear where you stand. I would like to make it clear that it is not my aim to push anyone to do anything that contradicts their personal moral code. That being said, if you're cool with it, let us move forward and see what you can get out of this. What you can achieve through manipulation. The first thing everyone wants to know when it comes to manipulation is what they can do with it. What can they achieve? What can they obtain from people that they couldn't before? Are there major advantages you can score, or are you just messing with people's minds for no reason other than your own sick sense of enjoyment? The short answer is that yes, there are valuable things you can obtain from having the skills to manipulate those around you. These advantages can be in your personal life, in your professional life, or in any social setting, really. Whether you're trying to influence your friends or your boss, manipulation techniques will prove to be of tremendous help when you're trying to get what you want. Establish authority in various social circles. When you know how to sweet-talk people and make them do things for you, you become top dog. This goes for every social situation, whether you're in the workplace or within family dynamics. With the help of manipulation, you can make yourself look like the most authoritative person in that situation and the person everyone goes to for advice, instructions, etc. Think about what it would be like to be the voice of reason in your family. Instead of yielding to the reigning matriarch or patriarch, grandpa's old fashioned and grandma's off a rocker, and you shouldn't be forced to listen to them. Establish dominance, and you will be the new leader of the clan. Similarly, you can become the go-to guy at work. Ignore Dave, who is always getting in the way and undermining you. Butter up everyone else in the office. And if you happen to share something less than flattering about Dave, say la vie. You're better than him anyway. And so what if you had to pretend to like Meg from accounting? Everyone likes you now and the whole office knows about that unfortunate, mysterious, and highly contagious rash Dave caught. So they avoid him. Now, you can practice your evil cackle later. Gain social and material advantages. I know all major religions and general moral compasses say that lying is a bad thing to do, but think of all the things it can get you. If you spin the tale and just the right way and play with someone's head just a little bit to make them feel guilty or pity you, you can gain social points and even material advantages if you play your cards right. Now, I'm not talking about going to the food bank and pretending to be homeless to score a free meal, because that does not help anyone and you're not exactly gaining anything other than being a horrible person for no reason. But if you've been gunning for that promotion at work, it can't hurt to butter up the boss a bit in order to get them to look upon you more favorably, does it? What if you started planting the idea in their head that you would be the perfect person for the job? Wouldn't that be a tremendous help? What about if you're planning a wedding, for example, and you want a certain venue, but your partner likes a different one? You can't get them to change their mind, and it doesn't make a difference at the end of the day, so you might accidentally cancel the reservation and then let your partner know that they double-booked by mistake. So now you have to look for a new venue. Oh, look, the one you like is open for bookings. How convenient. Manipulation as a social tool is pretty much harmless to everyone else around you, but it brings you advantages, so it's a win-win. You get what you want, everyone else is none the wiser, and no one misses out on anything or suffers any kind of damage. What's the harm? Take the power in every relationship. The person who has control has the power, and the person who knows how to manipulate people and situations has the control. It might not seem like it's important to have the power in your relationships because we like to think that our relationships are equal, but in reality, they are far from equal, and there is always one person who has more influence over the other one, a person who is in control. When it comes to romantic relationships, traditionally, it was the man who had the power, but as society evolves and becomes more equal, so do relationships. We now like to believe that a romantic relationship can be equal, whether the partners are a man and a woman, two men, or two women. The truth is that someone is always in charge, and it's not even a gender thing. It's a human thing. Think of all the relationships in your life. Your significant other, your best friend, your coworkers, etc. Isn't there always a person who gives more than the other one, while the other person is more passive? Aren't there always people who make you work harder for their love, companionship, or appreciation? A person who is more convincing than others and who somehow always manages to get everyone else to see things their way? Congratulations, you've discovered how interpersonal relationships actually work. Now, think, wouldn't you want to be that person who is in charge? The person who gets their way and doesn't have to compromise? Don't get me wrong. Compromise can be great and noble, but to get there, you have to go through a lot of conflict, disagreement, and just straight-up fighting. Why fight over what color to paint the living room when you can just convince your significant other that your way is better? Isn't that healthier? Or think about relationships where control is dictated by seniority, because that is what society follows. We all know it's nonsense to follow someone's lead just because they're older. Respect is earned, not owed. B. Techniques for mind control. Persuasion. Persuasion is the very first step on the scale of influencing behavior. Mostly harmless and decently easy to learn, persuasion is achieved through your own God-given charm and convincing abilities. Or, alternatively, that's something you can learn. Yes, that's right. If you're not very convincing, naturally, you can change that, my friend. But what is persuasion? Persuasion is the art of convincing. You know, attracting someone to the dark side. As far as influencing other people's behavior goes, this sits low on the list of immoral behavior or intentions. Everyone has the right to try to convince someone else of something. Some of us are more effective than others, but that shouldn't be held against us. Contrary to popular belief, persuasion isn't just spoken when it comes to convincing someone. It's a concentrated and purposeful effort involving various elements of your being, from your posture to your body language to your tone of voice and how well you maintain eye contact. It all contributes to creating the impression of confidence and influence. That's the trick behind persuasion. In its most simple form, giving off a supremely confident vibe, and creating the impression that you know exactly what you're doing. People are intimidated, impressed, and charmed by confident people. They trust them because of their own insecurities. You don't know what you're doing, but that fellow over there seems to know, so let's listen to him. Like I said, if you're not a persuasive person, you can become one. There are some tips and tricks you can employ in order to make yourself seem a different person, a better person, a more confident and persuasive person that can influence people and get what they want. Be mindful of your posture. You wouldn't believe how much our posture influences other people's opinion of us and what we represent. Think about it. Who seems more confident? A person who stands up straight or a person who slouches? Who seems healthier? Who seems more successful? We believe in people we admire and people we want to emulate, so you've got to work on that posture. Keep your back straight, your shoulders back, and your head held high. Look straight ahead. Maintain this posture at all times, while standing, walking, sitting, etc. This will make it easier for it to become habit. So, the next time you need to stand in front of a room full of people and be convincing, you will actually command respect and attention. Your tone is important. The most important lesson of all, when it comes to this part, is that your tone should fit your message. It's common sense, really. Don't laugh or sound chipper if you're talking about something serious, and don't be somber if you want to tell a joke. But people often miss the mark on this one, so it's worth mentioning. An appropriate tone will underscore your message nicely and make it sound more genuine and believable. Say it like you mean it, and you will have the target in the palm of your hand. What kind of energy are you putting out? What we call energy is your overall demeanor. You might not even be aware that this is a thing or that it counts, but it's actually one of the most important aspects of persuasion. You need to read your target and see what energy they are putting out. What mood are they in? Are they talkative? Do they seem tired? Cranky? Excited? This is important to note because your energy must match theirs. Otherwise, this whole show you're putting on is in vain. If you're overexcited when they're tired, that will be exhausting for them and they won't pay attention. If you're happy when they're miserable, they will be annoyed. If you're somber when they're cheery, they'll be bored. Remember that you want to retain their attention. The right amount of eye contact. Eye contact is overwhelmingly important to the way you are perceived and how persuasive you are. But finding the right amount of eye contact is a delicate balance. Too much, and you will be perceived to be aggressive, which will put them on the defensive. Too little, and you will be perceived as not persuasive enough, so they will stop listening. The secret is to maintain eye contact all throughout your speech, but sporadically. Look into their eyes at key moments when you're talking in order to underline the importance of your words and make them pay closer attention. This will make you seem sincere and open. After all, if you were lying, you would be avoiding their gaze, right? Body language is half the battle. It always comes back to body language, doesn't it? Body language can make or break your persuasiveness, so never underestimate its contribution. In order to be convincing, you have to be aware of the body language you are expressing and make sure it's in line with what you're saying. Old standby advice dictates that you should keep your pose open. Turn your body towards your audience. Don't keep your arms crossed. Keep your palms facing upward, etc. in order to put your audience at ease and express sincerity. You should also remember not to play with your hair, drum your fingers, or fidget, because that betrays nervousness and it's not what you want to project. Self-assured body language is essential. Build confidence. Confidence is the common denominator here and the aspect that is most noticeable in your interactions. Everything about you has to exude confidence, but that's difficult when you don't have it. But here is how you can build it up. Think of your failures as teachable moments. Learn from them instead of being discouraged. Now you know something new, and next time you know you will do better. Repeat a confident mantra every day, as you will later learn from this book. Spoiler: if you repeat something enough times, you start to believe it. Tell yourself, I am persuasive and great at what I do. Every day. Put yourself in unfamiliar situations. After you do something that terrifies you, it stops being intimidating. So embrace the opportunity. For unfamiliar situations, handling them successfully will give you confidence. What are some examples of persuasion? A really good sales pitch. Have you ever had someone try to sell you something? Maybe some sort of cleaning product for your car, maybe insurance, or maybe windows for your home. And actually, fell for it? I can picture him now. Nice dark suit, straight tie, slick hair, and $1 million smile. He approaches you and asks if he can have a minute of your time. You can waste a minute, so why not? So he starts talking about this amazing new product and how good it is. It has all these amazing features. He uses it himself and he's super happy with how it works. He even gives you a super convincing demonstration. By the end of the sales pitch, you're left there thinking, why not? The guy seems really passionate, confident in what he's saying, and honest. You really think that he wants the best for you, and the best is this new product. So you hand him the money, no questions asked. A successful presentation at work. Your coworker is giving a presentation today. You hate presentations because your palms get sweaty. You start stammering, and you can't stop thinking about all these people who are staring at you and judging you. Suffice it to say, your presentations aren't successful. Your coworker, however, glides over to the front of the room and in the most unwrinkled skirt you've ever seen, starts confidently talking about her project. Her tone is firm, but measured. Her back is straight, and her and gestures all seem very intentional. Every word she says adds to the effect of her presentation, and she never hesitates or misses a beat. She somehow manages to maintain eye contact with every single person in the room, so that you all feel like she is talking to you personally. She is completely relaxed, talks like she knows exactly what she's saying and why, and smiles like she doesn't have a care in the world. The result? No one dares to even question her. You all buy whatever it is she is selling without stopping to think if what she's been saying makes sense or not. She said it so well that it doesn't matter anymore. Mind control. Mind control. Here is where it gets serious. You don't play around with mind control. It's an activity not many people engage in, and with good reason. Mind control is, perhaps, the ultimate form of persuasion, but it's more than that. It's not just your mad persuasive abilities that allow you to effectively control someone's mind. Mind control relies on tricks of psychology and next-level manipulation. Do not try this at home, kids. What is mind control? In the simplest terms possible, mind control is the act of controlling someone else's mind. This is possible through a high level of influence, so you should know this is for advanced users, so to speak. If you're just starting out trying to influence people, you can't move straight into mind control because you will fail, and it might become obvious what you're trying to do. That can be dangerous and can have serious social repercussions, so I would be very careful if I were you. Now, mind control is nowhere near as dramatic as it sounds and as movies try to make it look. There is no device that will allow you to actually, physically, control someone else's mind and mold it into whatever you want. No, actual, real-life mind control is much more subtle, and it involves some very skilled and carefully calculated persuasion techniques. It's also good to know that a lot of these high-skill, high-level powerful techniques take time to achieve, so we're playing the long con here. You certainly can put thoughts into people's heads and subtly exert control over what they think or do, but that takes practice, perseverance, consistency, and time. You don't want to rush a process like this, because then your plan will not develop the way it should, and your target will not assimilate the message properly. Another point I want to make is about subtlety. Always make sure you are not obvious in your attempts at mind control. Otherwise, it will backfire in ways you have yet to understand. What are some examples of mind control? Putting ideas into someone's head. Let's say you really want someone to do a certain thing. Imagine you're 12 and you want your mom to buy you the new cool pair of sneakers, or maybe you want to go to a certain vacation destination with your partner. You know that. If you suggest it, they will be against the idea, so you can't outright tell them. The idea must be their own, or it must appear that way. This means you can't mention anything about this to them, because then they will know what you're up to. Don't address it directly, but instead, make sure they encounter the idea time and time again, but indirectly. You can achieve that through all sorts of means. The only thing you really need is creativity, persistence, and patience. One tactic that I personally love is taking advantage of technology. You know how Google displays targeted ads that are based on your personal searches and interests? Well, it's time to screw with that algorithm and give Google a new idea to plant into your victim's head. Suppose your birthday is coming up and you want a certain expensive watch. You can't ask for it, and there is no way your partner will think about it on their own. So you have to offer a little help. Go on their computer and start searching for that watch. Do it every day. Every time you find the computer unattended, make sure to go on specific gift websites so they'll receive the images of the watch in the context of gift giving. Remember to delete the search history so that they won't know you looked for it. Soon, they will start receiving ads for that watch every day, and they will be constantly exposed to that image. It will plant the seed in their head. Another good idea is to sign them up for a newsletter from a store that sells the watch. These things tend to send emails every week, sometimes with discount codes and sales attached. Something like this can push your significant other over the edge if they've been toying with the idea of purchasing that watch for you. Or at the very least, it can get them to think about it even more than they already did. Another trick you can employ is to co-opt a friend or several and have them talk about how great this watch is and how affordable it is. It's all about reinforcing the idea that's already in their head, and through these numerous and repetitive suggestions, leading them to the conclusion that they thought of the idea themselves. Thinking for someone. If there is one thing people have in common, it's our complete and utter laziness. Believe it or not, people are even too lazy to think. It sounds ridiculous, but when you think about it, it's not that surprising, really. Our brains go into overdrive thinking about 100 different things every second of the day. The basic things like food, shelter, safety, etc. are a given, but civilization and social development have added worries like work, stress, class anxieties, social conflicts, etc. Ironically, the more developed we are as a species, the more work and stress we seem to add into our lives. It's no wonder mindless tasks and hobbies have gained so much popularity in recent years: adult coloring books, minimalism, Netflix, etc. At the end of the day, we all just want to get home and not think. But with all of our modern responsibilities and worries, that is unfortunately an unattainable dream most of the time. Keeping that in mind, when someone comes along and offers to essentially think for you, most people will jump at the chance to enjoy some rest and let someone else do the hard work, even if just for a moment. If you're versed in manipulation, you will recognize this as an excellent opportunity to impose your own point of view. When people already have their minds made up about something, or when you ask them to think, you won't have much success. If you present them with an idea you've already thought of, on the other hand, the results are drastically different. This is valuable advice for any area or aspect of your life, not necessarily if you want to manipulate someone. For example, you are much more likely to get someone to meet with you if you give them a specific date and time. Hey, do you want to meet? What time would be better for you? Seems to be polite and accommodating, but ironically, it will yield poor results. If, on the other hand, you give a firm, "I can meet on Tuesday at 3, you are more likely to receive an affirmative answer. Why? First of all, because you allow minimal waffling. They have no room to hem and haw and change their minds, and they can't put you off. Second, it's because you present a solid moment in time that you've already thought of. All they have to do is show up. No thinking, no planning, no scheduling, no worrying, just going with whatever you came up with. It's the easiest choice in the world to make, and that's all you have to do to get what you want. Be the one To make the choices. Repetition. When you repeat something several times, you remember it. That's how learning works, through practice. The same concept can be applied to mind control. Latch onto an idea and repeat it to your target enough times, in different and subtle ways, and you will notice that they begin to assimilate it, only they don't know where they heard it or how they were introduced to it. They just know it's there now. This can be used for a number of things, from acquiring a skill, practice makes perfect, to learning a language, studying, etc. Of course, repetition is an important tool in manipulation because it's very easy to strongly suggest something to your target and have them assimilate the message. Of course, this won't work as well if it's an idea that the target does not agree with, hence why we still have political contradictions in the world. This can be a very effective technique, but you've got to be careful about how you bring the message into discussion. If you insist too much on your idea, the target might catch on and your repetition might put the person off. If you have too much of a good thing, there's a pretty high chance that you will never want to see it or hear about it again. So you have to maintain a careful and calculated balance in order to not fall into this trap. My suggestion is to start slowly and introduce the idea subtly. You shouldn't appear to be very eager or too set in your opinion, because that might put the target on the offensive and they will be resistant to your message. You need to display a relaxed, confident air that puts the target at ease and makes them more likely to listen to you and open to having their opinion challenged or changed. Try to introduce the topic each time as if it's not a big deal and you just happen to be talking about it. NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Let's start with the very beginning with this one. What is NLP? NLP is short for Neuro-Linguistic Programming, and it has been described as a behavioral technology. Neuro-linguistic programming encompasses psychotherapy, personal development, and communication, and it originates in California in the 1970s, having been discovered by John Grinder and Richard Bandler. To put it in simpler terms, neuro-linguistic programming is used to change your behavior by influencing your programming and neurolanguage. Proponents of NLP claim that it can help get rid of a whole range of things, including nearsightedness, tic disorders, colds, psychosomatic illness, phobias, allergies, learning disorders, and even depression. They say this works by influencing and modifying the behavior of people, allowing them to learn skills other people have, often in one single session, which is, by all standards, an extraordinary claim. If this is, indeed, real, then it's an extremely powerful tool that can work in your favor in a variety of situations. Hypnotherapy appears to be the place where one would go to have this used on them, but there are also seminars you can attend to learn how to make use of this technique in your own life, whether it is for personal use or for business endeavors. What are some examples of NLP? There are various tactics and tools you can use with NLP. It's all about taking control of your mind, or in this case, someone else's mind. They involve tapping into your subconscious in order to influence and control it through simple tricks that you can use on yourself in order to overcome certain mental blockages, or on others in order to steer them in a certain direction. Neuro-linguistic programming can achieve amazing things for you or others, but it can also used to hypnotize people and create some real damage. So use it responsibly. Believe it, and it shall come true. The power of belief is outstanding, and it's baffling that we don't use it more in order to get the things we want. The placebo effect is real and scientifically proven time and time again, which goes to show how incredibly powerful our brains are. You can harness that power for yourself and attract all you've ever dreamed about. Or you can attract other things to other people. If the placebo effect works on you, it will work on other people as well. That means that you can use your persuasive abilities to convince them of whatever you want, and as long as they really, truly believe in it, they will attract it naturally. Really, you don't even need to do much. The placebo effect will do all the work for you. The only thing you need to do is get them to believe the same thing you do. This works very well if you're looking to psyche someone out. For example, let's say you're in a competition with someone and you want to sabotage your adversaries in order to give you a higher chance of winning. Start casually, talking about failure, how tired they must be, how terrible it would be for them to fail. Ask them if they feel prepared enough for the competition, and absent-mindedly make a note of something that seems off about them. Don't make it obvious that you're trying to play with their mind. Say everything as if you're just thinking out loud. All these thoughts will get to them, and they will think about failure. They will believe that they will fail. That will affect their ability to focus, and at some point, they will have a misstep, thus granting you the advantage. It's true that you laid the groundwork, but the actual failure is all on them. Thanks. Placebo effect. Take advantage of associations. Your mind will often play tricks on you. That's because, as powerful a machine as our brain is, it can still get confused or lag behind. If you're not paying attention, the brain goes on autopilot and makes wrong decisions all the time. Think of all the impulses and things you do without thinking. Ever put the TV remote in the refrigerator or threw the forks in the trash can instead of the sink? Absent-mindedly multitasking is not the most efficient thing in the world. Keeping this in mind, you can do lots of things to trick people right under their noses. It's not magic, and it's not even particularly manipulative. At the end of the day, it's their own brain playing tricks on them, and they really should be paying more attention instead of allowing you to just make fools out of them. There is an infamous case of Darren Tricks, a British personality from the show Trick or Treat, who goes around New York paying salespeople with blank pieces of paper. That's right, white paper. How does he manage? He goes through with the transaction normally, looks the product, asks about it, listens to details, etc. Basically, he gets a conversation going with the shopkeeper. Then, he says he'll take it, and as he's taking out his wallet, he starts scrambling the person's thoughts by asking about directions for the train station, talks about how confusing the subway is, etc. While the person's attention is distracted, he takes out the blank pieces of paper and hands them over. Because the person has something tangible that they associate with money, i.e. having paper in their hands, they don't pay attention to what they are actually given. The amazing thing is that a lot of the time, they count the money too, or otherwise inspect it, but without actually realizing it's not money. The association the brain makes with the physical sensation is so strong, and its multitasking ability is so poor, that the person doesn't actually see what is in front of them. Darren gets some free fillets this way, and even a $4,500 platinum ring with diamonds. The power of misdirection is overwhelming and a little terrifying, so be careful with it. It's very strong. Engage in some negging. This technique is used by pickup artists everywhere, and while they might be slimy and use it for immoral purposes, the actual tactic is very effective and can be used for other things as well. To neg comes from negative, and it basically means putting forward a negative attitude or offering backhanded compliments, sometimes even insults. The psychology behind it is that it makes people feel inadequate and not good enough. People have this innate desire to be likable, and when someone doesn't think they're good enough, the first impulse is to prove to them that they are. The meaner you are to someone, the harder they will try to make you like them. This means that you can get some pretty sweet perks out of this dynamic and motivate people to do whatever you want. Sometimes, occasionally, you won't even have to ask. This works beautifully with people you've just met, but it also works with people you know. Let's say you've been receiving crappy gifts from your friend over the last few years, but you want this year to be different and for them to put more effort into it. Begin to distance yourself, almost imperceptibly. Start ignoring some texts and replying late to others, give short answers, etc. Generally, avoid being overly friendly, but don't be mean either. Just more reserved. Not enough that they can actually point to something and ask what's the matter, but enough that they become paranoid that you're upset with them. After some time, they'll feel it and they will think they did something. They might ask you about it, but just pretend everything is cool. You will notice that the request to hang out will increase exponentially, as will the amount of attention they give you. You can bet this year's gift will be amazing because they want to win your affection back and make up for whatever it is they think they did. Chapter 3. When someone else is the manipulator. A. Detecting manipulative people. When you're the victim of a manipulative person, it can seem impossible to detect. In fact, you won't even realize you're being manipulated, and that is the biggest danger. Manipulation can act as extremely effective emotional abuse, and just like victims of physical abuse, it is incredibly difficult to open your eyes, realize that you're being taken advantage of, and distance yourself from the abuser. Manipulative people can be encountered everywhere in any social situation. Actually, I'm willing to bet you know several manipulative people who exert their skills, more or less successfully, over you in the workplace, at school, in your friend's circle, etc. When the manipulative person is a stranger, or someone you're not close to, it's significantly easier to A. Identify the manipulating behavior and B. Distance yourself from that person and not allow their behavior to affect you. That is, because in order for manipulation to truly work effectively and exert the maximum amount of power, the victim must care about and trust the manipulator deeply. That is why actually the vast majority of manipulation cases are actually present in family dynamics. To say that it's difficult to identify your family members' behavior as manipulative is an understatement. Not only are they using their skills against you, but there is the added element of trust and guilt that does not allow you to truly believe that a person close to you could ever want to do you harm. However, the situation is unfortunately common, and it is not unusual for people to live lives full of lies and have relationships based entirely on manipulative behavior. You can learn how to identify the behavior employed by these people. You just need to pay attention to the most common techniques they use and know how to recognize the signs. 1. Constant criticism. It's common for the manipulator to try to make you always feel inadequate, so that you're off balance and vulnerable. If you feel bad or think there is something wrong with you all the time, from every point of view, they can make you doubt yourself and get into your head. Thus, they retain superiority and control. How do they achieve it? In actuality, this is cleverly disguised bullying, but it's difficult to show that to other people. The manipulator is always judging you, commenting negatively on everything you do, and doing their best to bring you down. It seems like you can do nothing right and that you're essentially worthless. They successfully marginalize you by either making you feel bad about yourself or creating a negative impression about you and other people. 2. Allowing you to display your weaknesses. Think of a manipulator as a predator who's lying in waiting for the prey to expose itself. That is exactly the behavior they display. Especially when meeting someone new, they will allow you to be yourself, speak first, talk about yourself, etc. in order to be able to study your behavior and identify your baseline. They now know how you act, react, what you think, what your values are, etc. They're informed on your person, but you aren't on theirs. So they have the advantage and can strike. How do they achieve it? Generally, a manipulator will play nice at first, presenting a fake face that's nice, welcoming, and accommodating, and will often concede in front of you as a sign of supposed politeness. They will insist you speak first, eat first, talk about yourself, etc. They will prod you for information on every aspect of your existence in order to learn more about you and what makes you tick. This bleeding of information is always done under the guise of politeness and genuine interest in your life. It is only later that you realize they are gathering ammunition. 3. Playing victim. If there is one thing manipulators love to do, is play victim. They love attention, especially the narcissists, and they will pry it out of you at all cost. They get off on making you worry, taking advantage of your sense of obligation or duty, having you spend time and resources to cater to them instead of doing something important to you, etc. They enjoy the control that gives them and will exploit it. to make unreasonable demands. How do they achieve it? They will create conflict where there is none, imagine insults, exaggerate or make up issues or personal problems. A very popular way to do it is create a fake health issue, pretend they are more ill than they are, threaten they're on their deathbed, purposefully make themselves sick, insist you are trying to hurt them, lament that everyone hates them, etc. Screaming, crying, and throwing tantrums is all par for the course in order to get pity and attention. 4. Controlling the environment. One of the basics of manipulation calls for ensuring you have environmental advantage. That means attracting the victim in your court, so to speak, on a territory where you have control, so you can dominate them. The goal is to make them feel unsure and uncomfortable in an unfamiliar place, while the manipulator is completely at ease in a space they own or know very well. How do they achieve it? Again, the invitation for the victim to step into enemy territory is often disguised as politeness and hospitality. People will insist to meet at their house, will always be the ones to drive or otherwise interact on their home turf, where they are in power. They rely on the fact that they have control over their own home and that they can essentially trap the victim there, who does not have a choice, being in someone else's home. Oftentimes, people will not react at manipulative jabs for fear of being rude, which is exactly what the manipulator is counting on. 5. Surprising you negatively. A power move manipulators use is to pull the rug from under you when you least expect it. They cause a negative situation unexpectedly in order to confuse you and put you off balance. You are suddenly confronted with a problem you had not anticipated, and all your resources need to go into figuring out how to solve the issue quickly and without consequences. You are no longer in control of the situation at hand because you have not time to prepare for it. How do they achieve it? Either a manipulator will actively cause chaos with the purpose of throwing you off your game, or they will just wait to inform you of a negative development until it's too late. When a manipulator has information, they will always wait until the worst possible moment to make it known. They might suddenly back out of a favor they promised they would do. They might pretend to have misunderstood something to excuse their mistake, etc. 6. Feigning misunderstanding or ignorance. When you don't understand something, no one can make you do it, right? Least, that's the logic the manipulator applies here. The manipulative individual will suddenly claim ignorance of even basic things, all in order to get out of a responsibility they have or determine the victim to do it themselves. How do they achieve it? This tactic relies on the victim becoming exasperated, irritated, bored, or running out of time while waiting around for the manipulator to supposedly understand what they are being told. This way, the manipulator either stalls for time until it's too late, thus inconveniencing the victim, or the victim takes it upon themselves to complete the task originally assigned to the manipulator, so the latter is off the hook. 7. Weaponizing paperwork. There is more than one way to stall for time, and manipulators know all the tricks. Procedure, paperwork, documentation can all take a lot of the victim's time and make their life difficult or burden them unnecessarily. That is the ultimate goal of the manipulator. Even if they are not stalling for a specific purpose, the simple fact that they are making the victim's life more difficult than it has to be gives them a sense of power and control. How do they achieve it? You will see this tactic used a lot in law enforcement and people working with the public in general. It's an attempt at exerting control through the only avenue they have, inserting legal roadblocks. Some people will actively seek career paths that allow them to do things like this because of the perceived control they have over other people. 8. Criticism disguised as humor. One of the oldest tricks in the book, manipulators often insult people only to claim that it was just a joke and lament how upset the victim is for no reason. Like the other type of criticism we discussed, this is meant to make the other person insecure, knock them down a peg, shake their self-esteem, and otherwise make them feel inferior to the manipulator. How do they achieve it? Sharper jabs will be inflicted when the manipulator is alone with the victim, but in public, They will always be disguised as humor. Funny anecdotes about embarrassing moments in the victim's life, insults, comments, judgment. All of this hiding behind the guise of humor so they can't be called out on their cruelty. 9. Springing something on you. Since surprising the victim works so well, manipulators will do it often when they've got something to gain from it. They will especially do it when you have to make a quick decision about something. They thrive on putting immense pressure on the victim, hoping that they will buckle. That gives them control and makes it more likely that the victim will concede to their opinions, requests, or demands. How do they achieve it? This situation is easy to create by hiding a time-sensitive issue from the victim or creating it themselves. The manipulator adds a sense of urgency to the situation and actively puts more pressure on the victim by rushing them or asking them what they're going to do. This adds tremendous psychological stress to the victim and confuses them, thus giving the manipulator an advantage. 10. Gaslighting. One of the most common and effective manipulation techniques is gaslighting. That is playing with the victim's mind and making them question themselves and their sanity by twisting and manipulating facts. Even if the victim was present for certain events and knows what happened, the manipulator will deny and invent a new version of reality in order to confuse and make the victim doubt their recollections. How do they achieve it? The manipulator will outright lie to the victim's face and try to convince them certain things didn't happen or didn't happen the way the victim remembers them. After applying this treatment repeatedly, the victim might come to question their own sanity and wonder what is real and what is not. Especially when the victim is alone, it's relatively easy to get them to doubt themselves and their own memories. 11. Guilt tripping. Guilt tripping is the manipulator's favorite pastime. They will pretend to be hurt, disappointed, insulted, abandoned, victimized, etc. by the victim's actions in order to appeal to their emotions and vulnerability. The manipulator relies on the victim's good nature and sense of responsibility in order to make them feel guilty for the hurt the manipulator is supposedly feeling, even when it is not their fault. How do they achieve it? Fake crying is an old standby, especially employed by female manipulators, but also children, once they're old enough to understand that it attracts attention that is beneficial to them. Talking about their hurt feelings, about how lonely they are, about how cruel the victim is being for whatever perceived slight the manipulator is making up, etc. are all tactics to make the victim feel guilty and cater to the manipulator's demands. 12. Fact overload. Manipulators love to feel superior and will often artificially create situations that allow them to display this superiority over their victims. When it comes to intellectual superiority, they are not above making up facts and information and overloading their victim with it in order to demonstrate that they hold all the knowledge and the victim is comparatively ignorant, even when the subject does not interest the victim. How do they achieve it? The manipulator will pick a topic, regardless of interest or importance, and will start dumping information on the victim and overwhelming them with details they have no interest in. Stories, statistics, facts, numbers, etc. Anything that will allow them to claim intellectual superiority, even where there is none. The goal is to make the victim feel inadequate and ignorant, thus granting the manipulator psychological control. 13. No contact. Silence can hold power and manipulators will use it to their advantage. Whether it's by stalling on something important or simply refusing to answer texts or calls because they want to make a point about how wrong the victim is, they will use silence as a way to make the victim doubt themselves. After a long enough period of this silent treatment, the victim will start second-guessing themselves and asking themselves why they are being punished. How do they achieve it? The manipulator will use silence as punishment and as a form of control over the victim. If they can't control the victim with words and actions, they will control them with silence and inaction. It's all meant to make the victim wonder what they did wrong and start looking for blame within themselves thus deflecting blame from the manipulator. 14. Raising their voice. Manipulators are known to raise their voice as a display of dominance and aggression. It is meant to intimidate and overpower the victim by making themselves and their emotions louder and more obvious than the victims. Typically, this might also be paired with over-the-top hand gestures in order to appear bigger, more overwhelming, and to cause the victim to retreat into a smaller space. How do they achieve it? Oftentimes, a discussion will not even warrant raising their voice because it does not yet turn into an argument, but the manipulator can turn anything into a one-sided argument. They can take offense and imagine conflict at the drop of a hat, just so they have an excuse to raise their voice and go into fight mode in order to intimidate or overpower the victim. 15. Fact manipulation. Manipulators do not shy away from manipulating reality when it is in their advantage. That includes events, facts, etc. They will lie, cheat, omit information, purposefully hide information, twist the words of others, mislead, etc. This adjustment of the truth will occur in any situation benefits them, whether it's a personal situation, professional, etc. Lying is second nature to a manipulator, so they will not think twice before doing it to get what they want. How do they achieve it? Sometimes, manipulators will lie just to stir the pot and distress the victim. They don't need to necessarily have a clear purpose beyond wreaking havoc or upsetting their victim, or sometimes just attracting attention of any kind. So you can expect a manipulator to be lying through their teeth even about mundane or unimportant things. B. Dealing with manipulative people. When you're not versed into the fine art of manipulation and you're unfamiliar with the signs, it can be extremely difficult to deal with such people when they work against you. In fact, there are lifelong relationships that maintain the manipulator-victim dynamic without any changes because the victim either does not recognize the manipulation and/or abuse, or they do not know how to address it or deal with it. Especially when the manipulator is someone you know and love, it can be incredibly difficult and heart-wrenching to identify and deal with the manipulation. After all, no one knows how to act upon realizing their own mother, brother, or best friend are manipulative people that are hurting them. No, one is properly equipped for that. Fortunately, once you learn about it, it becomes much easier to spot and identify, and also easier to handle. This next section will be dedicated to dealing with the manipulative people you may encounter in your life, whether they are strangers or loved ones. Ignore them. Ignore them and they'll go away is rarely good advice against bullying, because that is what this is, a form of, usually adult, bullying. However, unlike children, who we have a duty to protect, adults can deal with adults on the same level. Ignoring them might not work for the majority of people. However, depending on what kind of manipulation is being employed and how much it affects you, you might just get away with simply not giving it any attention. The vast majority of the techniques manipulators employ rely on their victims' reaction. If you do not give a reaction, you've effectively taken away their venom. They can't hurt you if you don't allow yourself to be hurt, or more specifically, don't give them satisfaction by showing them how hurt you are. That is all they want, at the end of the day, to see how they're upsetting you. You can't let them win. Of course, even if you understand why ignoring them might work, actually doing it is more difficult. It's hard not to react to their hurtful jabs, especially when they make you angry and all you want to do is lash out. But remember that manipulators work discreetly, so you lashing out will put you in a negative light while allowing them to appear to be the victim. So what can you do? Employ some counter techniques of your own. Gray rocking. Gray rocking takes its name after the action you're supposed to do. Act like a gray, unfeeling, unmoving rock. That's just a fancy way of saying that you should ignore their attempts to hurt you, but also that you should stop engaging. When they ask something, give a non-answer or a non-committal reply. 4. Example. When are you going to do something with your life? Someday. Are you finally going to do something about that horrible haircut you have? I don't know. You're hurting me so much. I'm just a frail old, sick woman. That's nice. Another very good tactic that has the added bonus of driving the manipulator crazy is simply removing yourself from the situation when they start in on you. They insult you? Leave the room. They play victim? Leave the room. They try to stir the pot? Leave the room. Every single time they try to create a conflict of any sort, you need to get up and leave. That way, they will learn that they cannot play these games with you. Information diet. An information diet is exactly what it sounds like it is. If you stop giving the manipulator information about you, you take away their ammunition. What they don't know, they can't use to hurt you. This is easy enough to do with strangers, acquaintances, and maybe coworkers, as your private life is none of their business anyway. Where it gets hard is when the manipulator is within your family. But even in that case, it is entirely possible for you to stop them from using information about your own life to hurt you. Here are some things you can do to minimize conflict. Don't ever offer information about your life voluntarily. Keep things vague. If they ask how you're doing, stop it, "I'm fine, thanks." They don't need to know you've been to the hospital, that you lost your job, or that you just won $1 million. If they ask specific questions, gray rock. Again, none of the things they ask are things they need to know. Not how much money you make, not how things are going in your family life, love life, or any other aspect of your life. Unless this information is vital to them, do not give it to them. Don't give information to people who communicate with them. Sometimes, even if you manage to shelter yourself and don't tell them information directly, it will reach their ears anyway through well-meaning third parties. If you don't want them to hear something, don't just tell other people to please not tell the manipulator. Remember that they are very good at spinning tales in their favor and making people do things for them. Instead of making yourself vulnerable by allowing info to slip through the cracks, lock it down by not telling anyone else who could tell them. Cut contact with them. Again, this tactic works easier with certain categories of people than it does with others. It's easy to cut ties with a manipulative friend, but when the manipulator is your own mother or another family member, interrupting contact can be difficult, logistically and emotionally, or even next to impossible. The cons are the difficulty, the judgment you will receive from people who do not understand the situation, the manipulator's attempts to get their victim back, as well as the fact that you might miss them and want to re-establish contact at some point. The pros, however, far outweigh the cons. You will be free of interference, bullying, emotional abuse, etc. You no longer need techniques of dealing with them because you don't have to. Keep in mind that you always have a choice of not remaining in contact with the manipulator unless you absolutely must. Engage with them in the workplace or a similar situation. Remove yourself, distance yourself, etc. Confront them. There is always the option of just letting them know that you are onto their mind, games and tactics, and that you are neither intimidated nor weak. You will not fall for their manipulation and will not provide them with a victim to project their nastiness on. They will try to gaslight you and tell you that you are making everything up and none of the situations you describe actually happened. It's up to you to stay strong and remember that they cannot hurt you. It's not really recommended to do this in public unless you have evidence, which we'll talk about in a minute, because otherwise you risk putting yourself in an unfortunate position. The manipulator is likely to manipulate everyone else and the situation in their favor. Their penchant for always being the victim will serve them well and impress everyone else, and you do not want them taking the abuser's side. At the end of the day, confrontation will let them know that you are very well aware of who they really are, which might as well cause them to escalate. But the more they escalate and the more obvious their real self is, the easier it is to show the rest of the world who they really are as well. Expose them. Exposure is, perhaps, a manipulator's worst nightmare. Many times they rely on their public image, which is at polar opposites with their real self. Exposure of their true colors would mean the end of their double life and the end of their ability to manipulate people. If everyone knows who you are and what you are capable of, They won't go near you and they won't believe your lies. And what is a manipulator without other people they can manipulate? Exposing a person like this is not easy, but it becomes easier as they start to lose control and composure. You have to take advantage of the cracks in the image and push further to cause them to lose their cool and make a scene. Alternatively, if you have concrete evidence of a situation they manipulated, like an audio or video recording, showing the world is essentially the end of their reign. You do need to exercise caution with something like this because the manipulator will not react kindly to being exposed. They will be angry and, depending on how disordered they are, they might come after you. Take protective measures against possible danger. It's always better to be safe than sorry. Conclusion. Congratulations on making it to the end. If you've made it this far, I am confident in my assessment that you are now on your way to becoming a master of manipulation. You've gone through everything you need to learn about manipulation, from theory to practice, from basics to advanced techniques. Manipulation has no more secrets for you. So look out, world. I hope you've enjoyed the process of learning more about this fascinating social art and that you now understand the immense value of a skill like manipulation. Despite the infamous reputation it carries, manipulation does not have to be strictly evil or used for nefarious purposes. While it's true that it certainly can inflict harm and a world of hurt if used by the wrong people in the wrong way, most importantly, manipulation can bring amazing social advantages to the manipulator. That is a healthy way of using it, too, as a social tool that can help you navigate social situations better and gain more advantages. What I want you to take away from this book is that you do not have to have these innate skills in order to apply this tool successfully. Anyone can learn manipulation skills. You just have to pay attention to the lessons I outlined for you in this book and make an effort to acquire all the skills you need. It's certainly a matter of talent, but much more of the process if attributed to hard work, so get right on that. I wanted this to be a comprehensive guide to manipulation so that anyone can read it and understand exactly what they need to do. All you need to know is, right here, in this ebook, from basics to tactics for the advanced and the individuals versed in the dark art of manipulation. As you were able to see, getting started is not actually that difficult. You just need to have a good starting point and valuable information and advice. After that, it is up to you to practice and apply what you've learned here. You won't get it right the first time, but with practice, you too can become an expert in manipulating people according to your will and preference. There is no limit on the things you can obtain with the help of pulling strings and bending people's minds to your advantage. I hope this book served as the guide you needed to get your feet wet when it comes to manipulation. The aim of this book was to teach you everything so that you can understand manipulation better and be able to identify it in others in order to protect yourself from it, but also know how to apply it in your everyday life. Remember that manipulation can be used for good or evil, and that you don't need to hurt people with it. It can be a skill like any other that you use to gain personal advantages, so start applying it right now with the help of this ebook. Good luck.